is going to be creeks and rivers, and I assume that's creeks or rivers. And so, and
Continue.
Alice, why don't you introduce our judge? But before we actually start the judging, we're going to do a quick review of the website, just for those people who maybe aren't that familiar with it and might be having some problems with it. So take it away. Who was doing it? I forgot.
Camera.
Camera,
McGee.
ready?
Yes, I'm just switching computers. Sorry.
Okay. So Doris, can we give her? And then it would also be helpful if everybody would mute themselves right now. And you can unmute to ask questions.
Hey, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Except we're
Yes.
Do you guys see the Camera Club website?
yes, we do.
Yes. Cool.
That's my photo.
It's been a while since I've used the actual Zoom. I've been using Teams a lot. So just a reminder up here on the address bar, the Camera Club website is SpokaneCameraClub.com, which is different from our older website that was .net, I think. So SpokaneCameraClub.com, when you log in, this is the page that you're loaded to. The part that you'll probably want to know the most about is the member login. Right here is where you log in, and then general club information is right here. Once you go to login, you put in your username and your password and click login. And then this is the entry page. It automatically brings you to the entry page. And to get entries, you click on get more entries. And for the Spokane Camera Club, there's no cost to upload your entries. So you just put in 32 will be for the whole season. You don't have to worry about any kind of payments. And then after you have your entries obtained, you go ahead and click on, down here it tells you the subjects of the month also at the bottom of the entry page.
Camera,
And
we're only seeing the home page. We're not actually seeing the login to the member page.
okay, hold on a second.
There you go.
Okay, let me go back. So here's the home page where you log on. Thanks for letting me know that. Here's the member log on button. Can you see my mouse moving now, David?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. Once you click on the member login, let me log back out so you can see it. It looks like this. You put in your email address and your password and then log in, and it brings you to the entries screen. So I'll show you that again. You click this button here to get your entries. When you click that, it'll tell you how many entries do you like. Like I said before, 32 will get you enough for the whole season. That's 4 per month. Right down here at the bottom of the entry screen is a list of all the subjects of the month. And I do believe that if you extend it, maybe it's just not in here, but it used to be when you would click on it, it would give you a little definition. So that might be an update coming soon. So look for that. To upload a photo for critique, you click upload a photo. And this part right here is pretty important where it says choose a category. You want to double check and triple check that you're putting it in where you want it. So we're in September digital, and there are 4 choices. There's general color, general monochrome, and then there's subject color and subject monochrome. That's for tonight. So for next meeting for print night, you'll want to pick one of these 4. Common mistakes are picking the wrong month or picking the wrong category, like digital or print. So a lot of times if your picture doesn't show up, you probably clicked the wrong category. You type your title right here and then choose your file. It's important that you remember that they have to be resized to no larger than 38 40 by 2160. And then you click submit. I'll go ahead and upload a photo just to show you what it looks like, or I can show you because they're in there. So after you click submit,
You need to title it also.
yes, you have to put in a title. After you click submit, it will be, I'm lost. View entries, I'm sorry. View your entries, and it'll show you the images that you've entered and what categories they were entered in. Once they're in there, you can always edit them using the edit button. So if you change your mind and you say, oh, I want to put in a different picture, you can click edit, you can delete it, you can change the title, and you can change the category.
Hey, Tamara, quick question.
Yeah.
Are we going to update the website this year with the actual scores for the photos?
Oh, I'm just not in charge of that. I'm just showing off how to use the website. I don't know the answer to that question. Anything else that I can try and answer?
Well, I
Okay,
think-
you want to have your video showing.
One other thing you might use also is the galleries part of it. We will eventually have all of the photos in the galleries. And so the galleries are separated by month, and then
Where does it show me? Or does everybody?
I didn't hear.
Participants.
These are all the past months that we've had up here. So they are uploaded for the past, and that will be updated as we go. So you can go back and see all the
There's a
wonderful
couple is
images.
in Alaska.
And if you hold your cursor over the picture, it tells you.
Rented a RV.
Tells you whose it is. John McLaughlin.
Tamara, could you give me the largest dimensions again?
I have to look it up. I think it's 3840 by 2160, but let me double check that.
No, we'll let you go.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. 3840 by 2160.
Thank you.
You got it.
Great. Thank you, Tamara.
You're welcome.
That was helpful for some people. If anybody needs help, be sure to contact them. We'll help you. So now we're up to the dues issue. Please pay your dues by October. For September, we're not preventing anybody from participating and uploading at all for September, but by October, you have to have paid to be able to submit. So I think that's it for now, and we'll talk a little bit more at the break. So why don't you, Alice, go ahead and introduce our judge, and let's get started.
Okay, our judge tonight is David Sands. He has been a member of our club for quite some time. Wonderful photographer, works at Garland Printing. I think we all know him. And he's been doing some beautiful work with birds lately that I have seen on Instagram and the website. So David, do you have anything to add to that? Can't hear you.
Are you muted?
I was still muted. All right. Probably the one thing I would like to say that really has captured my imagination is shooting with film again. I've gone back to not only shooting digitally, but shooting 4x5, 8x10, and 120 film. And I find that very satisfying. So I encourage people to get the film cameras out and lube them up and go back to shooting film from time to time. It's really fun. So with that said, we can start with looking at the pictures here. Which section do we want to start with? Color John?
We are starting with digital general color.
Okay.
First
And
picture is Barnum Point before the sunrise.
okay, and I've got these up in Lightroom here, so I guess if I were to share my screen, we could look at it while I talk about it. crying out loud.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to privacy. It's going to make me type my. Okay, can you see the picture on your screen?
Not yet.
No.
Let's see.
Does Tamara still have control of it?
How about now?
Ah,
Yep.
I see something. Oh,
Yes.
boy. Hold
Okay.
on.
Do you see the photograph now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Barnum Point before sunrise. This one I scored, and I'll redo these. Composition, impact, and technique is the order I wrote them down in, so that's how I'll read them. For this one, I scored it 3 for composition, 3 for impact, and 2 for technique. Composition is okay, but it's, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing to make it stand out in my mind. Impact, and again, this is just not a high impact kind of image. It's a very pleasing kind of tonality, but I don't think has high impact. Technique wise, the things that really bother me are these sensor spots like here and here. Are you able to see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
As I'm pointing these out, there's sensor dust spots all over the place. If you are working in Lightroom, you can use the spot removal tool and ask it to highlight those for you and just go through and knock them out, and that's a big help. The other thing that really bothers me here is this glow of real bright going around these trees, which to me indicates pushing too far on the lightening shadows and dropping the highlights down, and that will reveal this sort of thing. And it can be a little tricky to deal with and find a balancing point around it. So anyway, those are my observations on this picture. It's a very pleasing scene.
Barnum Point before the sunrise by Dennis Smith, 8 points. Cassowary with Chick, Australia.
Okay, this one I scored 4, 4, and 4. I think it's a very strong image. It's an interesting subject. I really like the way the chick is looking right toward the viewer, and the parent is apparently on a mission.
You see, okay?
And it's a very pleasing, satisfying image. And I think it's presented very nicely.
Okay, Cassowary with Chick, Australia by Dorothy Detler, 12 points. I'm sorry, I gotta get back in the swing here. Coastal Island.
Okay, would it be helpful if I just read the title as I comment on it, and then you can read it again and add the name at the end?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, and that way you won't be guessing whether I'm done, and we'll know. Okay, this one I scored 4 for composition. It's a good composition. 5 for impact. It's a very striking subject, and I tried to do these impact scores based as much as possible on how my initial reaction, which to me is what the impact idea is about. So 4, 5, and then 4 on technique. I think technique here is very good. My inclination, if I were doing this picture, would be to make a square out of it, but that's just me. I like squares, and often I will crop a rectangular picture to square. but that would be my only thought on this. I think a square would actually work quite well for this.
Okay. Coastal Island by Steve Whitaker, 13 points.
Okay, Dancing Cosmo. Scored this one 4 for composition, 4 for impact, and 5 for technique. The composition is very good. I would say above average. The impact is high. And I think the technique here is really excellent. There's just a beautiful palette of pastels against the striking magenta and yellow colors. And supported with a good strong base of green in there to complement the magenta. This is a picture I could see hanging on the wall and being enjoyed for years.
Okay, Dancing Cosmo by Colleen Bailey, 13 points.
Okay, Dry Falls. Scored this 4 for composition, 4 for impact, and 3 for technique. I think the composition is very strong. The impact is high, but technically, there are a lot of blown out whites in the clouds here. And I think the darkening of the upper sky and lower foreground may be a little more than might be optimum. I was going to look at the curve, but that's okay. Anyway, that was my impression on this one.
Dry Falls by John Klickus, 11 points.
Fall on the Allagash River. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Scored this one 4 for composition, 5 for impact, and 4 for technique. The picture has a nice, really dimensional quality to it. That moose really separates nicely from everything that's going on around it. I think this picture is just very well done. Very satisfying image.
Fall on the Allagash River by Alice Garland, 13 points.
Okay, now we have Golden Thistle. Scored this one 4, 5, and 5. The composition is very good. Could it have been stronger? Maybe, but it's really done very well. Impact-wise, I think the way that it's presented, the crispness of it, everything about it just gives it really high impact, and I think it's been executed extremely well.
Okay. Golden Thistle by Elaine Giordoni, 14 points.
We have Greeting. This I scored 4, 4, and 4. I think it's above average in all aspects. It possibly would benefit from somewhat different lighting than this. The bright background, I think, kind of pulls you away from the subject just a little bit. So I think that other lighting might have improved things a little over what this is, but it's a very pleasing picture.
Greeting by Jane Alleman, 12 points.
Now we have Having Dinner, which I scored 3 for composition, 4 for impact, and 3 for technique. The composition is good. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't see anything about it that elevates it above the ordinary. And as a composition. The impact, the subject, I think brings the impact level up. It's an excellent subject. And I think technically, it looks like it may have been cropped down quite a bit from a larger image. Feels a little harsh to me in terms of tonality. There's an awful lot of texture in what I would expect to be smoother tones that to me detract a little. But again, it's a very good image.
Having Dinner by Don Burnell, 10 points.
Intense. And this one I scored 4, 5, and 4. It's good composition. The subject itself and the stare of the eyes produce really high impact. And I think technically it's done quite well. The main thing that needs to be sharp is quite sharp. And if I had been doing anything, I might have done a little more burning into the foreground just to pull the eye back away from this bright edge, and or cropped in this, got rid of this bit of brightness on the bottom edge. I think that pulls the eye back out where you really don't want it. But overall, it's a very, very strong image.
Intense by Harvey Brown, 13 points.
Kickoff. Okay, I scored this 3, 4, and 4. The composition is good, but it's very straightforward, but good. I think the impact is quite high. It's good action imagery. Everything about the player's facial expression, the hand motions, the ball, and I really find this presentation of what looked like probably 2 steps from a burst taken with the camera very effective. It, sort of a mini motion picture in a sense, even with just a still presentation here. So I think this is nice. I like this.
Okay. Kickoff by Maxie Adams, 11 points.
Okay, we have Magnolia's Last Dance. Scored this 4 for composition. I think the composition is very good. I might have done with a little less space on this side and still been very happy with it. Impact, I scored at 5, and technique, I scored at 5. To me, this is really well executed. Very, very pleasing photograph.
Hey, Magnolia's Last Dance by Colleen Bailey, 14 points.
My Flower, Keep Out. I scored this one 4, 5, and 5. Again, we have a very good composition and very high impact, and I think the technique here is just excellent. You really enter this insect's world in this photograph. I mean, this is just eye to eye with the creature, and the parts that need to be there, of course, when you get into this kind of macro work, the depth of field becomes measured in fractions of a millimeter practically. But what needs to be sharp is very sharp here and really holds my attention.
Okay. My Flower, Keep Out by Tim Lesser, 14 points.
All right, we have Nature's Palette. And it must be in a rut here because I've scored this one 4, 5, and 5. But, and everybody's probably going to say, guy scores too high. He should burn somebody somewhere along the line. Anyway, I find this picture very deeply satisfying. The only thing I found compositionally was there's some sort of odd little distraction going on right along the very edge at the bottom here that I'm not sure of. And it's kind of a minor point, but it is there. It's almost like there was a log or something. I don't know, not sure what it was. Anyway, this is, to me, this is a very strong photograph.
Nature's Palette by Elaine Giadoni, 14 points.
Okay, out on a limb, I scored 3, 4, and 4. The composition is fine. It's very straightforward and nothing wrong with it, but nothing to make it really stand out. And the impact, I think, is pretty high because of the lack of distractions. We really are brought directly up to this bird, and it's presented very beautifully with excellent photographic technique. So 3, 4, and 4.
Out on a Limb by Rosemary Bazire, 11 points.
Piston, I scored 4, 4, and 4. I think the composition is actually probably a little above average, hence 4 points. The only thing about, I'm not very fond of this one line right on the edge, and I probably would have cropped in just enough to get rid of that. That's the one thing in this composition that distracts me, is having this red line right along the edge. If it had been kept to this darker tone all the way up the left side, I think that would be a big improvement. The impact is high, so 4 points for that. And I think the technique, now this is obviously very
And by
painted.
Don Burnell, 12 points.
Okay.
Okay. Ugh.
All right, we have Pygmy Nuthatch, scored 4, 4, and 4. I think everything about this picture is above average and very pleasing.
Okay.
Good nature shot.
Pygmy Nuthatch by Harvey Brown, 12 points.
Okay, we have Spokane River Blue. I scored 4, 4, and 4. Once again, we have a picture here that is above average all the way around. The smooth water textures in the river, the lights on the pavilion. It's done very well.
Spokane River Blue Hour by Alice Garland, 12 points.
Spring Fling. I think this is a pretty nice product shot. Maybe these people will be willing to give you some money for this one. It's wonderful color harmony. I think, you know, obviously you've chosen these flowers to match the color palette of the artwork on the bottle, and it's very pleasing. So this, I scored 4, 4, and 4. I think this is an above average image.
Swing by Lori Pence, 12 points.
Race Back to School. At first glance, it appears almost abstract, but then as you look at it for a moment, you can begin to make sense of all of it, and especially in context of the title. I scored this 4, 5, and 5. I think the composition is good. I think the impact is very high. I feel you're compelled to stop and look at it and see what it is. So I think that's working very well. And I think it's been executed extremely well.
The Race Back to School by Lynn Nordhagen, 14 points.
And we have the view from above, or just view from above without the article in front of it. This one I scored 5, 5, and 5. I can find really nothing about this that I would like to change. It is rich. The shadows go very deep, but not in a way that distracts me. I think it's just wonderfully executed.
View from Above by Dorothy Detler, 15 points. Okay, so now we're going to digital general monochrome.
Okay, start with Back in Time. I scored this one 3, 4, and 4. I think the composition is good, but not anything particularly extraordinary. The impact is high, and I think that's primarily because the key thing has the best contrast. When we look at an image, our eyes are drawn to the point of highest contrast, and that all happens right around the subject here. Technique is a little blown out in the highlights on the hands here. Is probably really the only thing that I find worth taking a point off for.
Okay, Back in Time by Lynn Nordhagen, 11 points.
Jackson, I scored 3, 5, and 4. I think this composition is okay. It's good. I think the impact is very high, and I'm actually going to get to a point where when I talk about the technique, having the highlight details blown out and some things that I find distracting, but the way that the contrast has been pushed here really helps build the impact. So maybe the lost point in technique got shifted over to impact for this. Once again, what's happening is the most important part of the picture it has the highest contrast, and that pulls your eye away from these areas that are blown out and something of a distraction. Even down here, it's blown out. But a striking image.
Jackson by Butch Shop, 12 points.
Lunch. I scored this 3, 4, and 4. The composition is fine. The impact, I think, is above average. Once again, it's a very strong subject. And technically, I think it's very good. I would have liked to have seen a little more shadow detail brought out in the darkest portions of the tortoise. Not talking necessarily about that so much, but around the face, I would have liked to have seen a little more shadow detail here with some local adjustment. But it's a very, very pleasing image.
Lunch by Don Burnell, 11 points.
Okay, Protective Mom. And I scored this 3 for composition, 5 for impact, and 4 for technique. The composition is good, very straightforward. The impact, I think, is very high based on the type of subject that it is. I mean, it just really gets your attention. And the main features of the subject stand out really well. They're supported by an out of focus background that's very pleasing. The really distracting thing to me is this very bright log here in the foreground. I certainly would have burned that down, brought that down in tonality to hopefully get rid of this distraction here. I mean, I want to see the log. I just don't want to see it with pure whites in it.
Protective Mom by Maxie Adams, 12 points.
One swipe at that, be your
Okay, Quiet Time. This I scored 3, 3, and 4. The composition is okay. I mean, this is kind of the main subject area as far as I can see. And there's an awful lot of busyness, I guess would be the way to describe it, going on. I'm wondering if there isn't a better picture somewhere just in this lower left corner here, maybe this quarter of it would have been stronger in my opinion. Impact is okay. It's not really overwhelming. I think technically your black and white technique is quite good here. Maybe a little distraction from this much out of focus very close to the camera, but because of its middle gray value, even that's really not too distracting, so that's not too bad.
Quiet Time by John McLaughlin, 10 points. Okay, so now we're going to digital subject color.
Okay, we start out with A River Runs Through It. And this I scored 5, 5, and 5.
You did?
I did. I scored 5, 5, and 5 on this.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong.
And pardon?
Nothing.
Okay. Anyway, no matter how I look at this, if I start from all fives and look for something to subtract, or if I start from average and try to find some reason not to add the maximum, I can't. This is just a really pleasing landscape photograph. And I think one of the really strong things about it is this beautiful, richly detailed, dark foreground that leads us up into the scene. And particularly since we're in our subject now, we're into the river, and the river really features beautifully in this photograph.
A River Runs Through It by Rose Marie Bizarre, 15 points.
After the Flash Flood, I scored 4, 4, and 4. I think this is above average on all counts. It's a very interesting image. I might find this little angle across the corner to be about the only real distraction. And I'm not sure, cropping on the side a little bit or whatever, but this is probably the one thing I find that is the most distracting from the general concept of the image.
After the Flash Flood by Jane Alleman, 12 points.
Okay, we have Cascading Beauty, which I scored 4, 5, and 4. It's an above average composition. I think the impact is very high. Technique, to me, it feels just a little blown out in the highlights. I don't know if you on your screens, can you see the histogram?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not completely blown out. We'll get to one later when I'll bring that up. And I actually, on some of these images, rather than just trust my eyes, looked over to the develop module to see if what I was seeing was in fact technically the case as well. But anyway, this is a very strong photograph here.
Cascading Beauty by Donna Larson, 13 points.
Okay, Clear Water. This I scored 3, 3, and 4. Again, this is one of these subtle kinds of images that by its very nature is not going to have a high impact, which doesn't mean it's not worth doing or makes it bad. It just is not going to be a high impact image. Compositionally, I would probably get rid of the bits of sky in this corner over here and kind of make a dark line the right-hand edge and maybe take in a little more of this over here. Again, this kind of brightness up in the corner pulls your eye to the corner, which is not really where you want the viewer going.
Clearwater by David Powers, 10 points.
All right, we have Columbia, which I scored 4, 3, or excuse me, 4, 4, and 3. I think the composition is very good. The impact is high, and the technique is good, although the colors and tones just look forced to me. And they can be tricky, finding the balance between pushing things a little hard, and it can be even just a matter of opinion. Could be that my opinion of tonal pushing is not as good as it might be, but to me it looks just a little harsh on the way the tones have been adjusted.
Columbia by David Powers, 11 points.
Crooked River. If you haven't been to Smith Rock, by all means go.
In Oregon, ever been there?
Yeah, Central Oregon, it's a great place to go. I've been there once and I need to go back and find some time to spend a couple, 3 days there. Beautiful place. And again, when we're in our subject, the river shows up very nicely here. I scored this one 4, 4, and 4. I think everything about this is above average. I think what would have worked a little better for you is a little different time of day to get a little more side lighting coming across. This is almost axis light. Basically, the sun's behind you, only coming a little bit from the left across the scene. But beautiful, beautiful place.
Crooked River by John McLaughlin, 12 points.
All right, Davis Creek. That's either a tall ladder or a drone shot, or there's a mountain right there. That certainly looks like a drone photograph to me. I think that I scored this 5, 5, and 4. I think the composition is outstanding. Really, really works well. The impact is very high. Technique, to me, the one thing that I find a little distracting is this arcing dark corners here. And to a certain extent of that's okay, but if it gets to be too harsh in the corners, what I'll do is use a gradient adjustment set to lighten a little bit and just drag it in from each corner to kind of balance out this so they don't get too heavy right in the corners. Or if I like the darkness of the corner, I'll use a radial filter set to darken and start from up above the image and then drag it out across in a strong oval just to pull a little extra darkness to match the center a little closer. Not necessarily to make it exactly even, but just to get a little bit better balance. But anyway, that's my only real thought on that.
Before I give the score, there's a lot of distraction. I'm hearing people talk and it sounds like somebody's typing. Could you mute yourselves, please?
And
Thank you.
Colleen, let me mute everybody, and then David, would you unmute yourself?
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll unmute myself, yes.
Okay.
All right, so I'm back. So that was Davis Creek by Tim McGee, and that's 14 points. Nice job, Tim. Okay, David, unmute. Oh, good.
There we go. I had to find myself behind my. Okay, so I think we're back. All right, we had Davis Creek. Now we move on to Donkey Island Swim Hole. Scored this 4, 5, and 4. I think the composition is very good. The impact for me is very high, and technique is very good. The things I noticed that it looks like someone has painted out the top of this tree so that the tree didn't run out of the frame. And to me, it appears pretty obvious that that's what's happened there. Other possible solutions, rather than just painting around with the clone tool, would be to find another photograph from the same session that has a treetop in the right size that you could blend in there, which you would have to do in Photoshop, not just in Lightroom. Anyway, that was probably the main distraction. And again, we have some of that business of the whites in and around the trees getting pushed up as a result of adjusting highlights and shadows, maybe a little aggressively. I've actually been known, when that gets to be a real problem, to, in Photoshop, put on another layer and then paint some of the nearby tonality over these tones with that layer's blending mode set to darken only. And so then you can paint it in, and then if it seems like anything has gotten a little too dark, you can just adjust the opacity of the layer back until it's hiding that glow effect without being obvious that you've done anything there. Just a little distraction, but anyway, beautiful, beautiful photograph.
Donkey Island Swimming Hole by Dennis Smith, 13 points.
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly right. I was doing math in my head for a second there. That's a very bad idea.
No, that's okay. You double checked me.
All right, now we get to one called Downstream. And this is, our subject is rivers and streams. And this is, the only thing I would comment on this, now I scored this 5, 5, and 5. My only thought on it is I'm not 100% sure it's in the right category because it's in color subject, and I'm wondering if this should be in color monochrome, because this looks like a split tone monochrome image to me, like a monochrome picture that has had the shadow values toned one color and the highlights toned another, which is a technique you can do in the darkroom using toners. So, I mean, this is not just something that can be done in the computer. Anyway, it has that look, so that would be the one comment I would have on it. I think this picture is 100% successful. The mists, I love the split tones that you've chosen, the blue against the golden highlights. The motion of it, I find absolutely nothing about this that I dislike. My only comment is that maybe it's in the wrong category, but because I don't see any natural color in this.
All right. Downstream by Tim Lesser, 15 points.
And maybe at some point the photographer can enlighten me as to whether those are in fact natural colors that are just that monochromatic. But anyway.
Oh, Dave, I think I was just messing around with the sepia controls.
But I mean, is it actually a color photograph?
It started color. I think I made it black and white and then mess with the, keep it in RGB, but mess with the sepia toning.
Right. Yeah, so that's where I would argue that it actually belongs in monochrome.
Well, I left it there because it's not actually black and white. It's,
well, yeah.
It's, yeah. So
yeah. Anyway,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll live with it either place because it's a gorgeous photograph no matter where you put it.
Thank you.
All right, now we have Fall Vibes, and this one I scored 5, 4, and 5. And I don't think there's too much to clarify here other than I think this is composed really well. Yeah, the only thing, and I didn't, but maybe should have taken a technique point off for things being maybe just a little bit forced in these textures right here. where I'm seeing maybe the highlights have been pushed out a little bit with a texture emphasis slider or something. But very satisfying picture. We'll leave the score where it is.
Fall Vibes by Lori Pence, 14 points.
Flow. This I scored 4, 5, and 5. I think the composition is very good. You could do 1,000 extremely similar compositions, would all be very good. I think maybe the one thing that elevates this one a little bit is this beautiful little highlight right here, and very close to what would be the best place to put a key part of the picture. That's a really nice touch. Beautiful colors, executed technically extremely well. Just the right amount of subject blur and crispness and everything all come together there.
Flow by John Lepper, 14 points.
Okay, Glacier Park, 2021 it says. I scored this 3 for composition, 4 for impact, and 4 for technique. Composition is good, and I think both impact-wise and technique-wise, it's above average on both counts.
Oh, Glacier Park 2021 by Kim Barbie, 11 points.
Golden Evening. I scored this one 4, 4, and 4 because I think it is above average on all counts. From a technical aspect, one of the things that I can see quite clearly is some chromatic aberration when they get out near the edges. Looking around, you see the red on one side and green on the other on wherever there's a high contrast point. And if you're in Lightroom, if you go into your develop module and come down to, move this out of the way, come down to lens. If you go over to profile and just check this little box that says remove chromatic aberration. And let me get back here. And you'll see that even just doing this on this small processed image has gotten rid of that red on this side, green on that side kind of effect. So highly recommend. That's off by default. I'm not sure why I would, if I were Adobe, I would have turned it on by default and then let people turn it off if they didn't like what it did. Because I find that unless you have an extraordinary lens that really almost has no chromatic aberration, it's almost always a good idea to turn that on.
Golden Evening by Steve Shining, 12 points.
All right, Pushing Up River. I scored this one 5, 5, and 5. I kept looking for something that I wanted to take away for. The only thing that I might even suggest is that this appears perhaps a bit unnaturally bright relative to this portion of the sky, but what an incredibly satisfying picture of activity. I mean, the action of this tugboat and these barges, and then a beautiful sunset behind it. Love this picture.
Pushing Up River at Sunset by Tim McGee, 15 points. Yay, Tim.
All right, here is Reflected, and I scored it 4, 5, and 5. I think the composition is very good. What would have made it dramatically better? Well, I don't really know, but it's all a very strong picture, gorgeous color.
Reflected Autumn by Steve Shining, 14 points.
And we have Slick Rock State Park, Arizona. This I scored 4, 5, and 4. I think above average composition, very high impact on the nature of the subject. The colors all contribute to the impact in this. Technically, I think the blues in the sky may be pushed a little hard, but one of the things you can do is go into your color mixer. If a color seems to be approaching saturation, and you can often verify that through the histogram, you can go into your color mixer and back off a specific color a little bit, because I don't think the greens and the reds are being pushed to saturation anywhere, but I'm seeing some blues up here in the sky that seem maybe just a little bit much, but still striking photograph.
Slick Rock State Park by Kim Barbie, 13 points.
Okay, Starvation Falls. Scored this one 4, 4, and 3. I think the composition is really good. I think the impact is above average and high, you know, in its position. But technically, it's really quite weak in the shadows. And this was one of the first ones I grabbed the develop module and came over and took a look. And you can see, if you look at the histogram, the whole bottom section just doesn't have any black in it. If you were to take the blacks and bring this down to where you just barely start to clip, I think it strengthens the picture dramatically. And we're actually pushing the highlights out a little bit to where they are starting to clip there as well too. So let me reset these so I'm not messing with your picture. That's just to show you. But anyway, those were my observations.
Starvation Falls by Donna Larson, 11 points.
All right, the North Fork scored 4, 4, and 5. Compositionally, and I'm not sure exactly how best to have dealt with it, but I find this angled corner here more distraction than helpful. It's not horrible, but it's something that draws my attention away from what I think I should be looking at. Everything else about it is really quite strong. And technically, I think you've executed this extremely well.
North Fork by John Lepper, 13 points.
Tranquil Stream. I scored 4, 5, and 4. Once again, we're kind of, for me, approaching burnout right in here. The shadows have really good values. My inclination, again, maybe I shouldn't do this, but my inclination would be to have come over here and used the curves a little bit and just brought the tonalities down a little bit in the shadows and then back up just a tad in the highlights. And that's, to me, would have strengthened this considerably. Helped really pull you into the main image.
Tranquil Stream by Steve Whitaker, 13 points.
Okay, and the last one is Underground Beauty. And I scored it 5, 5, and 5. What would I do to improve it? You know, the only thing I might do would be to go in with the spot removal tool and just get rid of, and I understand they're undoubtedly part of the picture, but sometimes if I find these little tiny white things that I'll just remove them, especially something that's right on the edge here. But anyway, very strong photograph. Wonderful lighting for an underground underground subject.
Underground Beauty by Tamara McGee, 15 points. And we have one picture in subject monochrome.
Okay, and that one picture, I scored 5, 4, and 3. Called Flowing South, and compositionally, I think it's superb. I think the impact is very high. From a technical standpoint, I think the shadow highlight sliders got pushed too far. There's a really strong glow around some of these plants. You just see this really almost like an aura around them. And I know that when you get out in nature that you can get this brighter. I see this in scenes. You go out and look at it and you can see it where the mists settle into the lower areas, but it seems really exaggerated here. And I think my opinion is that it's from pushing the shadow and highlight sliders too far in the opposite directions. That can be a real balancing act. And one approach to controlling things a little bit is, again, to use your radial filter or gradient filters and apply some of the adjustment you want to do locally rather than globally. In other words, rather than try to adjust it through the main slider, do it with local adjustment tools, and things can be improved substantially. This is a really gorgeous picture, and some people may not be bothered by the things I'm mentioning at all here. Always keep that in mind, that any individual critiquer may place too much value on some particular parameter. An example being the photographer who hates grain in their photograph, and someone's gone to a great deal of trouble to pick a grainy film and go for that effect. Well, all right, so you lost the person that hates grain. But anyway, that's my observation on this. I think this is a stunning photograph that could have more impact if the technique were a little stronger.
Flowing South by Tamara McGee, 12 points. And that's all of it for tonight.
Well, let's thank David for doing an excellent job of judging tonight. Thumbs up, clap, whatever. We have a few other things we need to comment on before we end tonight. One is we need to let you know that print night is not going to be in person. We kind of came to the conclusion that things are just heading south too fast and we're not going to do it in person. But what we are going to do is we're going to collect the prints, and you need to get the prints to me either on the South Hill or at my office down in Cannon by the 15th. And then I'm going to deliver them to David and he's going to judge off of the prints. You also have to get your digital of the print in by the 15th as well. And also, as we agreed that for print night, you can submit up to 4 prints. I can't remember how we divided it up, but I think you can't do more than 2 in one category. So I guess you could do 1 in each category, or you could do 2 in 2 categories, I guess. Do you anybody on the board remember how we decided?
Yes, let me, what it said here, just a sec. No, it's in these minutes, but I can't seem to find it.
So let's, for this print night, let's just say that you can do up to 4 and you can't do more than 2 in one category. And you can split them up any other way you want. we'd like to have people to continue to do prints. And so we're going to try to encourage that. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is we've been invited back to do a show at Barrister again. So we will be having a show at Barrister again for the third time in April of next year. So if you do prints all year long, you got some stock to work from to try to choose what you'd like to put in the Barrister show, although you don't have to put one of those in. But and also it's good practice to go out and get prints because it's a different skill getting a print to come out right than it is to get a digital to come out right. So we'd encourage people to do that. I'll send out an email to the whole list with my addresses, and you can choose which one you want to drop things off. I'm on the far South Hill, which may not be very convenient for some people, but the office is down in Brown's Addition, which may be a little more convenient. Let's see. So
Quick
David,
question.
yes,
Yeah,
Dorothy.
If it was more convenient for somebody to drop by the print shop and leave them here, would that work?
Sure, that would be fine. So when I send out the email, I'll send out the print shop address. I'll send out the Rounds Edition address and the South Hill address, and you can choose where you'd like to drop them off. But we need them by the 15th, and then print night will be the 22nd.
okay, David, what this says is we voted as a board. The prints can be in any of the 4 categories, general or subject, color or monochrome, with 2 color and 2 monochrome.
Okay.
Okay,
So you have to do 2 color or 2 monochrome, and you can put them wherever you want.
right.
Okay. Then the other thing is Alice wanted a minute to talk about the fair and volunteering at the fair.
The fair starts on Friday. Dorothy is going to send a link to all of the members tonight or tomorrow with a schedule. We have 3 shifts a day for 10 days. So we really, really need